You're on.
Hello again, it's me. I've actually gotten some work done since the last time we talked. I Bondoed this helmet up, at least a couple of coats of Bondo, and actually got 2 heavy coats of primer on it too. I've got some of the side lights all Bondoed up and primered, heavy primered, and I'm still working on some Bondoing on some others. So I'm really coming along. Now I want to talk to you about the whole primer idea and how it's going to help us fare this thing out. The primer, if you put it on nice and heavy, is a single hardness sandable coat. So use a finer piece of sandpaper and sand on your helmet after you've got it primered, and you'll see the white, it'll cut through on the high spots will be, Bondo colored, and the low spots will just be black primer. And you can primer it again after this if it's not smooth enough, and you can fill any low spots. You can put little bits of Bondo on and then primer it again, and this is going to help us get a really smooth globe for copper leafing. So we'll make this thing look like copper,
cool.
And then it's going to really start to look like a project that we can finish up. Okay, so that's what I'm at. Now I'm going to sand on this thing until it's smooth, and I'll do some more filling and finishing, and then sandable primer. I'm using Rust-Oleum sandable primer. This is what I'm using. Got that.
Sandable primer.
I got it at the hardware store.
Yes, indeed.
Make sure you spray paint outside or use a respirator, because the fumes from spray painting are dangerous and so forth. And I could even use the dust mask if I was raising any dust, but I'm really not. The dust is all falling right on the ground, which I have to sweep up right away because it's black dust.
Charming.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
It's on.
All right. Well, we've got our sphere pretty smooth. I got it filled several times and primered. Looks real good to me. I put my casting lights up on here and I marked them out. I don't know if it's hard to tell, but it's black because it's black on black. You can see the mark. So now I'm going to pierce the sphere and cut out these light holes. So I'm using a Rotozip tool.
Rotozip.
There's a Rotozip. And I got my light marked out. I've actually even started it. It'll be noisy, so just watch the cut. Okay, so there's the opening, and this will get one of the side light castings. I've marked out things it's going to go here. I still have to trim up the hole a little so that it goes right in, but this is our original paper mache dome that's been fiberglass and bondoed over, and that's how I'm going to cut out the side light openings. All right, talk to you next time.
Okay.
All right then, this is the display stand for the helmet that we're making. And I'm also going to use it to help me mold the bib. I made it out of cedar shims I got at the Home Depot and some old fence wood that we found on the side of the road. I just cut that up. It's tacked and glued together. I got some brass tacks here.
Get down to the brass tacks.
Yes, down to the brass tacks. This reminds me of a wooden lobster pot. I think it's the perfect stand.
Dad agrees that it looks like a lobster pot, right, Dad?
That's right. It's a perfect stand for that helmet.
The cat's watching as well for some
Oh,
reason.
please don't put that in the video.
It's great. I'm making.
I can't edit these videos. You're
They're
gonna.
gonna be good. It's going, Lair. We're still videoing.
No, let's do it again.
Really, it was a really good video.
No. All right. This is the bib stand, all decked out for thermoforming. We're going to thermoform the bib. Now I want to tell you that I've put the bayonet ring on upside down so I can fit the plastic to the bayonet ring, and I've put the braille underlayment on. That's copper tubing with just a filler in there so that the plastic will drape on it. And now that I've got this ready to go, I'm going to put the plastic into a preheated 350-degree oven, and then we're gonna try thermoforming. Ready to rock here.
All right.
Okay, so this is the piece of plexiglass that we're going to put
It's hard
on.
to see.
This is the piece we're going to put on here, and I've pre-cut the neck hole smaller than the neck. I'm going to stretch the plastic right over that bayonet, aluminum bayonet, and then I'm going to stretch it onto this form, and we're going to hot mold this piece of plexiglass. Now this was at the Home Depot. It's just plexiglass for a window. Let's put it in the oven. I've got the oven preheated to 350. Here's our oven. That doesn't quite fit in this oven. Let's like suspend it.
It couldn't be any wider either, could it?
No, it's just this biggest piece of plastic we can put in that oven. Now I'm going to check it. I want it nice and soft. That's 350-degree oven, and this plastic melts at 350 degrees. So Lexan or acrylic is approximately 350-degree melting temperature. Make sure you have lots of pot holders and so forth ready for the thermoforming, because that sheet's going to be hot and we don't want to burn our hands. All right, that's a good video. Pretty soft. I'm taking it out.
Okay. Yeah.
Work. All right, this is the front, this is the back. Okay.
What's this process called again?
Thermoform.
Oh, thermoforming. Okay. Oh, heat gun time.
going to have you turn off the video and help me out now.
Action.
Hi everybody. Well, I'm fitting the lights to the helmet dome. Yesterday we did the bib and I got a good start on that. This is the bib. Now I've bondoed the neck flange onto the bib. That's the bayonet neck flange. Everything's fitting pretty good here. I made sure, of course, that the helmet is oriented correctly. Let's see if we can't go ahead and get this on here. And when it clicks in, it's facing forward, so that helmet's on there good. And now I'm fitting all the lights to the helmet, so everything's going to be fit in there. Now I'm just tacking them in. Once I've got them fit, I just tack them in with 4 spots of hot glue, just so that they keep their position. All right, let's take this off of here. Here's the way I'm fitting the lights to the helmet. I've got this rough cut hole, and I've got my lights marked out for the bottom and left and right. Make sure everything's straight with the helmet, and then I take a marker get everything right here. I take a marker and I go around it. Right there, that'll tell me where I've got to make a little cut. So I'll use a Roto-Zip, just like that, and I'll cut a little closer and a little closer, and pretty soon I'll have a perfect fit for that light into the helmet dome. Just like all these, if you take a look at the cuts around the helmet dome, we want to get those cuts just perfect.
Wow.
Because we're only going to have a small area where it looks like those lights are soldered on, and we don't want big gaps.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to fit that last light, and then we're going to start our leafing. We're going to make some of the parts look brass and some of the parts look copper.
Oh, that's going to be exciting.
And that'll be, it'll really start to come together then. And of course, I'm making a diver helmet, but these steps can be used for any kind of thing that you want to make. This is a lot of good makeup practice where you're preparing parts out of essentially nothing to make something.
Yeah.
See you next time.
All right.
Okay, today we're working on the bib. I transferred the lower braille frame from the stand to the actual bib. Now, in a real helmet, the bib would have been a sheet of copper that was pounded over a braille frame and made to fit the cam lock ring. So this is a sheet of plastic, but it's the same idea. I've heat molded or thermo molded it over the braille frame and onto the cam lock ring. Now, I'm not 100% happy with it. This edge is turned down pretty nice, but the other side has got a couple of wrinkles in it, and now I can use a heat gun to straighten some of these out. Let's work on this wrinkle right here and get the heat gun going.
Heat gun. That's what we need in Florida.
Yeah, you could probably use a good blow dryer on this, but I got a real heat gun. Now, we're going to locally be getting that plastic to about 350 degrees, so be careful. And don't do a big section of this. I've used thermal melt glue to hold the braille frame on, and I don't want to melt the whole thing. I want that braille frame to help me out here. I'm checking to see if it's soft enough. It's moving a little bit. I got it nice and hot. And this is a damp rag I used to get the plastic in place and then cool it quickly. I think I want to get it a little hotter. you're worried about touching the plastic with your hand, maybe you should be, because 350 degrees will burn you. Alright, so I'm going to use the heat gun and work on this some more. I want to get the edge of my sheet here to look like a piece of copper that's bent over real nice. I'll work on that, and then we have to make the upper braille sections. They'll go in here, and I'm going to do those with copper tubing like I've done here, and Bondo. Talk to you next time.
Action.
Alright, well, we're up to the part where we make the little bits and pieces for the helmet. So I'm going to make the guards, or I'm starting to make one of the guards goes over the one of the windows or the lights in the helmet. I bent some copper tubing around a spray can, and I made these circles. I cut them all out, and now I'm going to join that into an actual circle. So I took some sandpaper, and since I'm going to solder this circle together, I've got to sand off all the tarnish that's on the copper tubing and make it nice and bright, shiny copper where they're going to join. You see, that's nice, shiny, bright copper. Then, this is dead soft tubing, so you should be able to bend it until the thing is ready to go here. I'm working on the back of a pizza stone from our oven. So
I wondered what that was.
that's what that is. Now I've soldered on bricks too. That works pretty good.
Pizza
Soldering.
stone. Good thinking.
I want to get this nice and flat, and round. It'll be easier now than after it's soldered. So while it's dead soft and malleable, let's get this thing into the right shape. Close. Close to round. I've got a little tarnish right here. Now wherever the copper's tarnished, you're not going to be able to tin the copper. And tinning is just coating it with the solder. We want the solder to have good adhesion and to tin the copper well. So make sure every little bit by where you're going to solder is bright, shiny copper. Okay. Now this tubing is copper tubing. It's going to absorb a lot of heat, so you're going to need a high wattage iron. I'm going to use a 100 watt iron to solder. I'm using solder that has flux in it. Let's get
Flux
that.
capacitor.
Not a flux capacitor. Flux is just to help the solder wet out the material. All right, I've got a joint here that's nice and tight, and I want to get it aligned properly. That looks pretty good. All right, now let's solder this. So I'm using a 100 watt iron. The tip of the iron has to be what we call tinned. So I can take some of my solder and melt it on the tip. And we want to get the corrosion off of it. I'm going to heat up the work to be soldered. And ideally, we're going to get this copper hot enough to melt the solder. Now the solder melts at, I don't know, about 400 degrees. The iron goes up to 1,000 degrees, so we're transferring quite a bit of heat from the iron tip to the copper. All right, so now my copper is hot enough to melt the solder. You be careful touching this because heat wicks around copper really well. It's a very good thermal conductor. Be careful, don't burn yourself on it. That entire ring is hot enough to burn you. So you got to be very ginger when you touch it. All right, this entire copper ring now is soldered, and I'm going to dress it with a file to make it nice, a nice smooth joint there. The next parts that go on are going to be a piece that goes there and a piece that goes opposite that. So we're going to do it the same way. We're going to shine up the copper right where it's got to be soldered, and then just solder those joints.